This is not a flash in the pan. Inside Saudi Arabia's long-term bid to reshape world sport 4 weeks ago, the ADP and SURJ Sports Investment, a PIF subsidiary, announced the launch of an all-new Masters 1000 tournament to be hosted in Saudi Arabia as early as 2028. It is the latest in a series of strategic moves made by the PIF, through SURJ, to widen its global sports portfolio and fulfill its mandate to be a catalyst for sport in Saudi Arabia, driving long-term growth in the sector. The National spoke to SURJ Sports Investment CEO Danny Townsend about the recent Masters 1000 announcement, the company's overall strategy, and the challenges that come with working to transform the sports ecosystem in Saudi Arabia. When you're investing in sports IP intellectual property, you want to invest in assets that have had a history of growth. When you look at the Masters 1000 licenses over time, they've continued to grow in enterprise value. So first and foremost, as an investment, the return profile was clear that if we could secure one, it would be a good investment. Secondly, when you look at our mandate at SURJ more broadly and how we use our investment assets to drive sustainable growth in the sports sector, having an owned tennis tournament as opposed to a rented one would enable us to do a couple of things. 1. It would enable us to invest in infrastructure that could host tennis tournaments in perpetuity, which you really can't do when you rent an asset. And 2. It allows you to build a tennis economy around an asset that you also own in perpetuity, whether that be development pathways, coaching pathways, elite development, various other things. Tennis has an 11-month season that hops from one city to another, yet it doesn't seem to fully benefit from its global appeal, and it leaves a lot of money on the table. In what ways do you feel tennis can maximize more on its opportunities? Tennis just has significant foundational strength. It's got a rich history, it's played in all the major economies around the world, it's a sport that's relatively easy to understand what's going on. The fundamental principle that needs to be addressed is the premium level of the sport and how that is packaged up for a modern-day consumer. But we look at that as an opportunity. Where the sport is today is in a very strong position, but we do believe there are changes that could be made that would further enhance its attractiveness to the modern-day sports fan, which, at the moment, I think is up for grabs. Tennis is probably well-positioned to do that if it manages that challenge the right way. We certainly want to be able to be influential in that from the inside. Now being a shareholder in the ATP and obviously engaged with the WTA through the finals, how do we use our involvement in the sport from the inside to affect positive change on the outside? We certainly think we can be helpful in that process. The premium product is something that every stakeholder in tennis is talking about. But one of the things holding tennis back is the fragmentation of its governance structure, with 7 different governing bodies involved in the sport. How difficult do you think forming this premium product could be, given how divided tennis is? It's interesting. We've spent the last 2 years dealing with every stakeholder in the sport, whether it be the ATP, the WTA, the ITF, the Grand Slams, each of them individually. And they all know what the consumer wants. When you talk to them all separately and independently of each other, they all recognize what the endgame looks like. I think the challenge is how you get to that endgame, both from a governance perspective but also from a product control perspective. It's not that simple. Take the Masters 1000s. You've got different men's and women's 1000s. You've got different men's and women's 500s. So the calendar is difficult to rationalize. You've got stakeholders that have invested in 1000s and 500s and 250s that want to preserve the asset they've invested in. So I totally respect that they need to be managed through. So it's not simple. I think we all know where we've got to get to. The challenge is how we navigate our way to that outcome. And we shouldn't take too long to do that because we've only got a limited amount of time to really engage this younger consumer base with a compelling product that is the best v the best. Have you spoken to the tournaments in Qatar and Dubai? They've been around for over 30 years. The Saudi Masters 1000 could have a ripple effect on them, whether positively or negatively. We speak to the various stakeholders across those tournaments regularly on a multitude of different sport investments that we all make. We're well in tune to them all. What we are trying to do more broadly is work together as a Gulf region to collectively drive our influence over the global sporting landscape. This swing, if we can make it work, which I'm sure we can, a Gulf swing through the month of February/March would be fantastic. To have all the best men's and women's tennis players camped out in our part of the world for 4 to 5 weeks, I think it would be fantastic for tennis in the region.